Hey guys, Alvin here, and welcome back to another aviation photography editing series. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use Topaz Denoise AI to get the most out of your noisy images. So what's the big deal about Topaz Denoise AI? What is it and why is it so special? Topaz Denoise AI is a noise reduction tool that uses artificial intelligence and deep learning to help eliminate noise in a photo and also to help preserve and even recover important details in the image. Well, that's a lot of big words in one sentence, so instead of just telling you about it, let me throw up a few examples of images that I've been able to recover using Topaz Denoise AI. To understand what makes Topaz Denoise so special, let's talk a bit about traditional noise reduction tools. A traditional noise reduction tool, such as the one found in Adobe Lightroom, applies a denoise filter on the entire photo. So while it's able to successfully denoise the photo, it's also causing it to lose important details in the process. So with Topaz Denoise, on the other hand, it is much smarter as it uses artificial intelligence to determine which sections of the image require more denoise and which sections of the image we want to preserve the details in. As a result, Denoise is able to eliminate noise from a photo while preserving the details in areas that you want. And it's able to do this because it is trained using thousands or even hundreds of thousands of real images. And this denoise model is continuously being improved through frequent updates from the developer. The way it's able to denoise photos sometimes really does feel like magic. I've been using Topaz Denoise for over a year now, and I can confidently say it has made the biggest fundamental difference in my editing workflow and also the resulting quality of my images. I've been able to recover some really noisy photos that I would never have dreamed of recovering before. It has also allowed me to be more comfortable shooting in low light conditions and not being afraid to bump up the ISO, having the confidence that Topaz Denoise can help me control the noise in post-processing. So let me show you how to actually use this tool to get the best denoising results. So first thing to note is that I am using Topaz Denoise as a plugin in Photoshop, but it also works as a plugin in Lightroom, and you can also use it as a standalone application if you prefer. So here we are in the interface of Topaz Denoise, and the first thing you want to understand are the 4 different modes here on the right. You have standard, clear, low light, and severe noise. So first of all, you have the standard mode, which is kind of the default mode of Topaz Denoise AI, and it'll do a good job of cleaning up the noise and also preserving the detail of the original image. So second, we have the clear mode, which is an alternative to the standard mode, and it tends to use a heavier touch to clean up the noise and recover details, especially when the image you're working with is a little bit soft, especially when you zoom in and take a look at it. And I find that throughout my editing, I tend to use clear mode quite a bit, maybe around 80% of the time. Then we come to low light mode, which, as the name implies, is meant to be used for low light images or images captured in less than ideal lighting conditions. So a common example would be night photos. And low light mode does a really good job of removing noise in very noisy images at the expense of some of the details might find will become a little bit softer as a result. So you'll have to find the right balance when using low light mode. And finally, severe noise mode, which is meant to be used for only the noisiest images, so maybe images taken above 10,000 ISO. I personally haven't had a lot of opportunity to use this particular mode, as a lot of the images I take, I try to keep the ISO under 4,000. But I have seen a couple examples of this mode being used by other photographers, and it does seem to be doing a pretty good job of doing what it's advertising, which is to remove severe noise. So on each of these 4 different modes, you also have configuration options beneath, such as these sliders and these settings and toggles that let you control how much noise reduction you actually want, and also how much sharpness and original details you want to recover in the image. So let's find a few images to actually run through Topaz Denoise AI so I can go and demo some of the modes that I typically use in my editing workflow. So now we got our first image here of a Turkish 787 on final into YVR. And the first thing I do after I open up Topaz is just set the zoom to something like 100%, just so I can zoom in and pan around and look at where the noise is, how sharp the details are, just the overall quality of the image, and just get an idea of where we want to be removing noise, where we want to be recovering image details. You can also, depending on how large your photo is, you can also change it to like 200% just to zoom in a bit more, just to inspect where the noise is coming from. Usually it's in the darker sections of the photo, like typically under the belly, you'll see a lot of noise. Maybe over here, basically in the shadows. I find that the noise is a lot more apparent in the shadows of the image. So notice on the bottom left corner, there is a preview status bar. And what it does is that when you are panning around and you're zooming in and out, when you pause on a section of the image and you let go, what it'll do is it will render this current crop of the image as a preview for you to let you see, based on the current mode and the current settings you're using, how will this image look like after you've run it through the denoise engine. So what I typically do is I just pan around to the different problem areas, so where I know the noise is coming through, and I just let it preview this particular spot. So for example, here on the nose gear, I see some noise. I let it render the preview and I can see what the image will look like after I click apply. So this will give you a nice preview of the image without having to run the entire image through the engine. So what I like to do is just to spot check a couple areas to make sure all the noisy areas are being denoised as I would expect. You can also change the zoom level to maybe see more of the photo. Maybe you want to preview this entire section, but keep in mind that if you are zooming out, the engine will take a bit longer to render the preview, obviously because you are running denoise on more of the image than if you were zoomed in. So just keep that in mind. So depending on how the preview looks, you can go and adjust the configurations, the sliders, and then it will render the preview again with those updated sliders. You can also change the view preferences here on the top right. So instead of looking at just a single view, you can also change it to a split view, which gives you a nice comparison. The left side is the original and the right side is with the denoise filter applied. So you can look at it that way. Or you can change it to a side-by-side view. Maybe you want to look at the same portion of the image, but have the before and after view. So again, left side is the original, and over here on the right side is with the denoise filter applied. And then finally, there is this comparison view, which gives you a nice handy way to look at all the different modes of denoise. So top left is the original. Here on the right, you have the standard mode. On the bottom left, you have the clear mode. And then finally, if the image was run through with the low light mode. This is a nice way to quickly compare the different modes to see which one looks the best on your image. So for this shot, I actually shot it with an aperture of f8 during a lot of daylight. So there's actually not a lot of noise in the photo and it's actually pretty sharp. So in this case, what I typically do is I would just go with standard denoise mode just to clean up the image a little bit. One thing you can do is you can check the auto toggle, which will allow Topaz Denoise to automatically determine the right settings for you to use. Well, what it thinks are the best settings, and then you can see if you are happy with the results. If you're not, you can simply turn off the toggle and just adjust these sliders manually to your liking. And once you get the look that you're going for, you can go and hit apply. And it'll take a little bit of time to process depending on how powerful your system is. And there you go. Now it has applied the denoise filter on your image. And so now what you want to do is just to spot check different areas to make sure that the denoise filter applied correctly and there were no funny things that are happening. Sometimes if you go too aggressive with noise reduction, it can leave like weird artifacts on your image. So you just want to make sure you avoid those situations. Just pan around and see how the denoise looks after the entire image has been denoised. So let's try it on another image of this WestJet 787 after just landing in Vancouver on a very moody kind of evening. And for this particular shot, I shot it through a fence in not the best kind of lighting, so I used an aperture of f2.8, which means the image is probably a bit softer than I would like. So if we zoom in and take a look, So as you can see, there's quite a bit more noise than the last image because of the lower lighting conditions and the higher ISO that I ended up using. And also the image is not the most sharp because I used a lower aperture of f2.8 to capture more light, but as a result that leads to a bit more softness in photos. It's still in focus, but it's not, really tack sharp. So as I mentioned before, I find that the clear mode, for softer images, I find that the clear mode seems to do a better job of denoising the photo and also bringing back some of that sharpness and the clarity in the photo. So that's what I'm going to go with for this image. Hit the clear mode, and then for the settings, for an image like this, I would typically go with like a medium remove noise setting because there is a bit more noise than the last one, but not like a huge amount of noise. I will go with something in between, like medium. And for sharpness, because I said that the image is a bit soft, I'm going to go with a high enhanced sharpness setting. You can just take a look here. I'll pan it over here where there's a lot of noise and let go. And then you can see the denoise filter kicking in and smoothing that out a bit. Similarly, if I was to move over here where there's a lot of noise under the wing and around the engine, and I let go, let the preview kick in, and there you go. It has smoothed out the noise and also, while enhancing the sharpness in these edges and cleaning that up a bit. And a nice way to visualize that is to just toggle this original image on and off, just to see, what it looked like before and now what it looks like after the denoise. Again, use different views just to make your life easier to compare different sections. Again, on the left is the original, over here on the right is with the denoise filter applied. So just spot check a couple more areas to make sure that the mode you're using and the settings you're using are behaving as you would expect. Yep, that looks pretty good to me. There. So once you're happy with that, again, you can click apply. It'll take some time to process the denoise on the entire image. I find that the clear mode tends to take a bit longer because of the heavier processing that I think it does. It does stress your computer out a little bit more. So hopefully your computer doesn't crash at this point. So after the denoise has been applied, again, just zoom in and pan around the image just to spot check all the different areas, make sure nothing funny is going on to your image. So that looks pretty good, I think. So for photos taken in extremely low light conditions, such as this one here of an Austrian 767 taxiing on a cold winter evening in Montreal, that's where we would use something like the low light mode. So the low light mode is really aggressive with the noise reduction. So you'll have to use the sliders and find a good balance so you are achieving the right amount of denoise while not losing out on a lot of the sharpness in the image. So I'm just gonna go ahead and toggle the auto and see what that does for me. And see, okay, so it gave me 5 for remove noise and 36 for sharpening. Just gonna zoom in a bit to see that a bit better. So it is removing the noise, but I think it's getting a bit soft. So I'm gonna bump up the sharpness a bit more than what it's recommending me. So maybe something like 80. Yeah, so that's pretty good. It's removing all the noise around here and on the plane, in the sky, but I am bumping up the sharpness so that even though it is removing the noise, it is still relatively sharp on the image. So these settings kind of look good to me. Another thing you can do with Topaz is to actually use this mask tool that lets you paint the areas of the image where you want the denoise to be applied. So for example, for whatever reason, maybe you only want the denoise to apply on this part of the plane. So I would grab the mask tool and just paint over the section of the plane and let go. So here, if it's highlighted in red, it means this area will be where the denoise will be applied. Uncheck the overlay just to get rid of that red tint. If you can tell, only this part is having the noise reduction applied. It's not being applied over here or here on the ground, only in this area where you painted it. And you can go and adjust, the radius of your brush, the softness of the brush, and also the opacity. I never used this setting in here because I like the finer controls that you get as part of Photoshop using the layers and the brush tools. You know, I don't do any masking within the Denoise software, so I'm just gonna remove that mask. But if you wanted to, you could try playing around with that if you wanted to do a mask within Topaz Denoise itself. So something like this I think would be a good setting for a low light shot like this. Once you're happy with the settings, go ahead and click apply, and it will go and run through the image through the Denoise engine. And once it's complete, again, go around the image just to spot check all the different areas to make sure you know, Topaz worked properly and there are no weird artifacts as a result. So how do I use Topaz Denoise as part of my regular editing workflow? So normally I do some minimal editing in Lightroom, and then I bring the photo into Photoshop where I do an initial first pass of denoise using Topaz Denoise. I do the denoise at the beginning of any heavy editing because I don't want to be going and enhancing any of the noise throughout that editing process in Photoshop, where I'm applying layers upon layers and you know, duplicating layers. If I don't get rid of the noise first, those noise images will stack up on top of each other and it will result in a pretty noisy final edit. So doing a first initial pass, usually a much more aggressive noise reduction, and then at the end of the edit, before I'm ready to crop it and export the photo, I usually run the photo through a second pass of denoise, just a very light amount of noise reduction, just to clean up any of the noise that might have come out as a result of the heavy editing process in Photoshop. As you guys know, I do tend to edit pretty heavily, so that tends to introduce some noise as I go through the edit. So that second pass of denoise tends to work quite well to clean up that final image. So with the amazing features of Topaz Denoise AI, unfortunately, it isn't a free product to use. You will have to pay a one-time purchase price to continue using it. However, they do offer a 30-day free trial that I highly recommend you go and download and check it out for yourself. Run it through on some of your own images. Make sure it lives up to your expectations. Also, it's a good way to check that it works well on your system. I know Topaz Denoise can be pretty taxing on your CPU and GPU, so just make sure that it runs well on your system and your computer specifications can handle the software. On their website, I believe they do have a list of minimum requirements that your computer should be to be able to run Topaz Denoise. So once you've tried it out for yourself and you're convinced you want to go and buy this, at the time of this video, the one-time regular purchase price of Topaz Denoise is $79.99. However, I have seen it go on sale on multiple occasions throughout the year, such as during Black Fridays or the holiday season. So I would highly recommend you wait for one of these sales before you go out and buy it. I have seen it go down to a price of $69.99 or even $59.99. Topaz also offers a bundle deal called the Image Quality Bundle, where they bundle 3 of their products, Sharpen AI, Gigapixel AI, and Denoise AI, for a total bundle price of $199.99. And if you're familiar with the other 2 products, Sharpen and Gigapixel, Sharpen obviously helps you sharpen up your images, and Gigapixel helps you enlarge your images or blow them up so that you can do like really large prints, or maybe if you were doing like a billboard, for example, you need a really high resolution image. Gigapixel helps you do that. I personally own the entire Topaz suite. I got it on a deal during Black Friday, I believe. I am familiar with those 2 products and I can say those are really powerful tools to have as well. So if you're interested in those, definitely go check that out and consider getting the Image Quality Bundle. I'll probably do a separate video on Sharpen and Gigapixel in the future, but if you're already familiar with them and you have been wondering maybe about picking them up, definitely consider the Image Quality Bundle. And finally, I am a Topaz affiliate member, so I offer a discount code and link that you can use to get an additional 15% off on your Topaz purchase. And this stacks with any ongoing sales promotions. So for example, if there was one of those $59.99 sales during the Black Friday or Christmas season, and you also stack on top my 15% off discount, you can pretty much pick up Topaz Denoise AI for close to $50, which I think is a really great deal for the amount of power that you get with this product. So I'll put the discount code in the description below. For full transparency, I do earn a small commission from any purchases that go through my links. So if you enjoy my aviation photography work or you enjoy my content here on YouTube, a great way to show support for me would be to simply make your purchases through those links. You get the additional 15% off, and it also goes a long way to helping me make more content for you guys. Alright, that's it for this one, guys. As you probably saw in the video, Topaz Denoise AI is a really powerful piece of software, and it has had a huge impact on my editing workflow and given me the ability to really push my photography and photo editing to the next level. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this one, whether you already own Topaz Denoise or if you're thinking about purchasing it after seeing this video. As always, thanks for watching, happy plane spotting, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.